Fighting games are not what one would ever call accessible. The skilled player must memorize strings of button inputs in joystick movements to pull off attacks, calculating how each move will land while constantly adapting to the moves of the opponent. It is truly a genre that draws the most hardcore of fans. Now, while series like Street Fighter and Tekken have gained mainstream success, most of their competitors failed to reach the same heights, or died off completely. The early to mid 90s were the glory days of fighting games, with an explosion of titles in the traditional 1v1 style taking the public by storm. But every combo eventually gets broken. By the dawn of the new millennium, the glory days were over as interest in fighting games had waned following the release of Street Fighter 3. Capcom, now one of the sole pioneers in a rapidly shrinking genre, secured a deal with a world-class media company thanks to the development of the Punisher for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Capcom set out to revolutionize the fighting genre, capitalizing on characters rather than combat. It was a match made only in dreams. The World Warriors joined the world's greatest heroes. Enter X-Men vs. Street Fighter and Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, crossover fighting games that established a new way to play. Selecting two characters and using a tag system in battle shocked and enthralled arcade goers in the late 90s, eventually reaching an even wider audience once they were ported to the home consoles Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation. These dream games laid the groundwork for Marvel vs. Capcom, Clash of Superheroes. The first entry of the series was praised for great sprite animations, roster, aesthetic style, and fast, chaotic gameplay. Additionally, Marvel vs. Capcom added the variable cross technique, a way to attack your opponent with both characters at once, heightening the crossover cast appeal. Where else could you simulate fights of iconic characters like Captain America and Ryu from Street Fighter, Iron Man and Mega Man, and even Sentinel vs. Cienko? Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes hit arcades in the Sega Dreamcast. The second entry was praised for expanded roster and addition of 3-on-3 combat. These tag battles became the most hectic version of fighting in video games, and the game's aesthetics continued to wow audiences. Tag-style gameplay became very popular, though the high skill ceiling that fighting games were known for remained. It was impossible to ignore the lack of accessibility in the genre, and Capcom was worried about how to access the mainstream audience in the mid-2000s, appeal to hardcore fans and lose the bulk of players, or risk alienating the steady fans by making the games too simple. It was a choice more difficult than choosing which Shoto character to main. After being approached by a specific Japanese media company, the decision was made for Capcom to revive fighting games by developing two fighting games at once. One would be the long-awaited Street Fighter 4, and the other, a new entry in the Versus series. The heart of the Versus series had always been playing as popular characters you've probably heard of. But what about characters you've probably never heard of? You can push yourself to the limit, being strong and jump with me. You can fly over the rainbow with me for just and just believe. Your mind is probably racing, wondering what you are seeing. You have crossed the border into the world of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, cross-generation of heroes. As previously stated, in the 2000s, fighting games weren't as popular in the mainstream, but Capcom producer Ryota Niitsuma had a drive to change this. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom was developed as the antithesis to Street Fighter 4, with the goal for this game being prioritizing accessibility, so they used the Nintendo Wii to attract a larger audience. Japanese game studio Aiding started developing the game for Capcom, with the intention of a 3-button attack system, so that flashy moves could be performed with basic inputs, to keep new players' attention. TVC was the first game in the Versus series fully rendered in 3D, and was meant to be the premier fighter for the Nintendo Wii. However, with so many tricky licensing issues, it seemed impossible that the fighter would ever make it to the West. In a series full of popular characters, TVC's roster is the most eclectic set of combatants by far. Tatsunoko characters unheard of in the West, and obscure Capcom characters everywhere. Of course there are mainstays like Ryu and Chun-Li, but instead of Mega Man, we have Walnut and Roll, who is actually the best character in the entire game. She can heal herself, and she is so small that she can't be hit! Can't forget Soki and Saki. There were many characters that Tatsunoko restricted, most notably the Samurai Pizza Cats. In the planning stages, Capcom had a bevy of characters they were considering, including Franziska von Karma and Phoenix Wright from the Ace Attorney series, while Franziska could easily be a whip fighter. Phoenix had never been seen in any fighting role before. This was before his appearance in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, so what could a lawyer possibly bring to a tournament against warriors and aliens? Well, the original plan was adding tires to his desk, turning it into a monster truck of prosecution. I'll never run out of hate for whoever objected to this idea. In the end, the roster was bizarre, fresh, and unprecedented. Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, Cashern, Karis, Polymar, Ipatsuman, the cool characters were endless. Also Tekkaman. From the era when anime sounded like in the July 2009 issue of Nintendo Power, writer Chris Hoffman, or The Hoff, published a full expose on Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, confirming against all odds its Western release. Its new subtitle was also revealed, Ultimate All-Stars! Hoffman delved into the fighting mechanics, diverse cast, and pedigree of both companies. Seeing all of this in my favorite gaming magazine blew my mind. Fighting games getting this kind of coverage was great, but specifically a game as bizarre as this featured in Nintendo's official magazine. Too bad the cover story was Kingdom Hearts. Mickey's looking like,
ooh, we are in a bad place, bro.
In a press release in the same month, Capcom confirmed Ultimate All-Stars would have extra minigames and an enhanced story mode. When I first heard this, I was so excited. I'm even more excited to tell you that this was a lie. They quickly retracted that statement and said they were considering adding extra characters. But those extra characters were clean. Tekkaman Blade, Frank West, Zero, and Joe the Condor. And that was all of them. Also, they cut Hakushan Daimyo, even from the Japanese version. Damn, they put that genie right back in the bottle. As for the enhanced story mode, it was just a basic arcade mode with some Udon comic endings. The best parts of them were Capcom cameos like Arthur, Axel, and Santana Lawrence. Much like the aforementioned Nintendo Power magazine, one of the other sparkling bastions of my childhood was the Nintendo World Store in Rockefeller Center. On January 23, 2010, the store held a launch event for Ultimate All-Stars, with Niitsuma himself making an appearance. Hearing his shock and excitement at the size and diversity of the crowd, as well as his mid-flight worries that he would be the only one there, was a heartwarming sentiment from a career businessman. I couldn't attend myself, but pre-ordering from GameStop got me these sweet lenticular trading cards. These are my 4 Heavenly Kings. Overall, the launch event and sales blew Capcom's expectations out of the water. Upon hearing the news that Ultimate All-Stars was a success, then Capcom community manager Seth Killian said things like, "What? Really?" Honestly, it seemed that Killian was pleasantly surprised at the sales for a game with a title that, quote, most people can't even pronounce. So it was a success, and the game was in players' hands. But what did it bring to the table as they slowly jittered the Wii Remote cursor to the start button? Refined tag gameplay that was focused and less frantic than Marvel. New universal techniques like Baroque combos and Mega Crash would give you advantages for sacrificing life and hyper combo meter. So many unlockable colors in art. More reliable online than Brawl, and a shooter minigame as a completion bonus. The arcade mode boss is Yami from Okami. Just use saki. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Now, there were 2 characters who I've neglected to talk about yet. And I think it's because one of them is my favorite character in the game. I know it's cheap. I know it's too big. But I love PTX40A. I just wish it was me in that mech fighting aliens and zipping around like... For this other character, I don't think words will help at all. So I'm just gonna... Above all of that, it's about what you fight to. Let's talk about that soundtrack. A versatile combination of hard rock, hip-hop, and R&B in the traditional versus style. I'd like to discuss some of these songs and other fighters' tracks in a video in the future. The main theme is Across the Border, sung by Anna Golston and rapped by James C. Wilson. This theme is one of my favorite game themes of all time. I can go back to the first time I heard it and feel those goosebumps all over again. The lyrics of the song really encapsulate the meaning of a crossover game, and it simultaneously warms my heart and pumps me up. The reason I'm showing my love for this game by making this video is, 1, I love it, and 2, the 10-year anniversary just passed and nobody cared. There has never been a follow-up game that plays similarly or uses all of these characters. And with the current state of the Versus series, oh no, Mr. Stark, I am not having a great feel. The Versus series left Nintendo consoles after TVC, along with most third parties during the Wii U generation. I had almost lost all hope for a return, before I heard a simple, beautiful sound. Everyone loves the Switch, and if I can play Waku Waku 7, just port Tatsunoko vs. Capcom already. Everybody loves it. They loved Ultra Street Fighter 2, Capcom, it's time. I love this game, and I know I'm not the only one. Fighting games are in the limelight again thanks to you and the fan community you helped build. Now capitalize on it. Talking about this game makes me genuinely happy, and seeing people play it again and going online to fight would be a dream. I always wanted my first video to be about something I truly cared about. Something that I could shine a spotlight on and something that needs recognition in a time of neglect. This game can be once again lifted up if we raise our voices for it. Capcom has been fulfilling dreams lately after all, so there's no reason to stay quiet. If we try, side by side, we'll survive. Let's fly across the border.